Hi, I'm Chris Bergwald.
And I'm Renee Leach.
And this is the next in our series of follow-up videos to our Day of Reflection, Come Hear the Story, Getting More Out of the Mass. So Renee, in the last video, we ended up getting caught up in talking about the story.
We got sidetracked.
Which is something, One thing that I get time to talk about that I wanted to mention, but ran out of time in the last video. Just literally, we're recording Holy Thursday. Last night, I was reading a book by Bishop Robert Barron, and he refers to another theologian who said that, and I have shared this with you before right now on camera.
Thanks.
The church's job is to tell the world its story.
See? What am I telling you?
Amen. So, our job is to tell the story.
Yes.
Not just remember it for ourselves, not just tell it to other Christians, but to tell it to the world. This is the world's story.
Yes.
So, but we, back to our regularly scheduled
That's
programming.
affirmation for us, yeah.
Absolutely. It's all about us. The Passover.
Yes.
So that's what we were going to talk about in the last video, but this was one of the key points. This is the theme of your second talk on the Day of Reflection, and just the importance of the Passover, and particularly that idea. And this is how we got off, because we're talking about remembering, but the Passover is a memorial, and I'm so fascinated by this ancient Jewish belief that whenever they celebrate the Passover meal, they are being saved from slavery in Egypt. That God's saving action in the Exodus is made present anew for them to participate in every time they celebrate the Passover meal. All the way, theoretically at least, all the way down to today. So that's the thing that most. But what about you? Like when you were doing the research and you did a great job of presenting, we've gotten great feedback from your presentation. People were are fascinated, Catholics, because they see the connection with the Mass, but they've never heard, many of them, about the details of the Seder, the Passover meal. So what was it about the Passover sacrifice, the Passover meal that struck you?
Part of it was that it's not just, it's the Seder, it's a Passover meal, but it's not, it's a liturgy.
Right.
It's in there, and there are many, many stages. There's 15 stages.
What's a liturgy? I know somebody just asked you that recently.
Somebody just asked. It is, what is a liturgy, Dr. Well, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Well done.
Definition.
A liturgy is, it's so the word comes from, actually, it's a public act. It's an act of the people and for the people is the Greek etymology. In the context of, for us as Catholics, as Christians, and for the Jewish people, liturgy is an ordered, structured form of worship. So in a liturgy, it's a public prayer, so it involves at least one person, but usually multiple people, and there's a certain specific order to it. Mm-hmm. So you said there are 15 stages.
There's 15 stages. And there are blessings and readings, and every step has a prayer and a blessing, and it, as you go through those 15 stages, it tells the story of the Exodus. And it's a beautiful way of, it's how they pass down the story from one generation to the next, and they did it by the oldest person in the house would tell the story, and the youngest person in the house would ask the questions. Why is this day different than any other day? Right.
And it's so it's a family celebration, as you talked about that day.
It's a family celebration.
And there's that. It's cross-generational, it's the oldest and the youngest who are involved in the celebration.
And during Jesus's time, it was a huge family reunion because you had to celebrate it in Jerusalem,
right?
So that the lamb could be slaughtered at the temple. And so when you think about 2 million Jews descending upon Jerusalem, all for the purpose of celebrating the Seder meal, I'm sure it was a sight to behold.
Right. So if we just briefly looking, you and I have talked a lot before, and I know you did a lot of research and study on how Jesus would have celebrated in the first century. What were some of the details that you came across as you were studying how the Passover is celebrated in the first century that struck you most?
Some of the things that were, one in particular is is that the sacrifice of the lamb, I mean, that's what it was. It started with the sacrifice. Well, it started the day before with the cleansing of the leavening from the home. And if you did not clean out all the leavening out of your home, God would just it was required that you get all the leavening out of your house, or you were cut off from God.
Right.
And leavening represented sin.
Right.
So you had to do a cleaning first, and then on the day they would take their lambs to the temple. And what struck me is that I always pictured that it was the priest who slit the throat of the lamb to sacrifice the lamb, and it was not. It was the offerer who brought the lamb, slit the lamb's throat, and the priest caught the blood and then put the blood on the altar.
Poured the blood out. The blood was poured out.
Yeah, the blood was poured out. But it just reinforced for me, that was my sins that put Jesus on the cross, and the fact that, the offerer had to slit the throat, had to kill the lamb. It was really profound for me.
You didn't. I don't remember you saying that specifically.
No, because I thought it was too graphic for the day.
Okay, yeah.
But it was one of those things that has really struck me is the offerer would bring the lamb and give his intention. What is your intention with this lamb? And this is my offering to the Lord. And the priest would look it over to make sure that it was unblemished and whole and male. And when the priest gave his blessing on the lamb, the offerer slit his throat. Yeah. And then they would put the lamb on a stake.
Right.
And they would flay it, which means to skin it and
Right.
drain all the blood out. And then they would put it on a second stick so that they could carry it home. It was a cruciform. It looked like a cross.
Right.
And that was what, as Jesus as a boy, he would have gone with Joseph down to the temple to watch this happen, and he would have known. I mean, this would have been Jesus' experience for 32 years of his life of watching this sacrifice happen.
Let's talk about some more of the details in the next video.
Okay.